Welcome into the Bama Elite. I'm your host, Justin Smith, Director of Recruiting and Managing Editor here at Touchdown Alabama. As always, I'm joined by Matthew Mason, one of our talented team reporters and contributors, and Travion Ware, another one of our talented team reporters and contributors. Love to have these guys on the Bama Elite where we break down the latest in Alabama football. And the Crimson Tide are back rolling officially, taking down the Georgia Bulldogs on the road in Athens, 24-21. You can make the argument that the Crimson Tide had full control of this game from start to finish. It was one of the more impressive outings of the DeBoer era. The Crimson Tide were impressive in so many ways, whether it was in the trenches when it comes to protecting Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson looked like a potential Heisman favorite. It looks as if he's now a legitimate Heisman candidate. But to start off this show, we're going to talk about our biggest takeaways from this matchup. And I'm going to throw it to you, Matthew, first. You can talk about your biggest takeaway from this matchup.
I think we're learning a lot about this Alabama receiver room. I think at the beginning of the year, we obviously had a Bama Elite episode where we gave our breakout stars. And I was saying Isaiah Horton was going to step up to be that guy that Alabama really needed. And they really needed a third wide receiver, but they got a fourth one too, because freshman Lazier Brooks. I mean, hey, Ryan Williams is kind of having his moments and then having moments where he drops wide open passes, but he'll eventually, I think, through his career, find a level of consistency. But it's good to know that a third guy is ready if Ryan is having a bad game, and Lazier Brooks definitely stepping up in there. Of course, I love Jeremy Bernard, especially, and I know you're probably going to talk about this a little bit, Justin, about the ways that Ryan Grubb was kind of getting him involved, and of course all the stuff that was creative about the game plan. But Jeremy Bernard, just seeing him be able to be used, it reminds me of the way that Kyle Shanahan used to kind of use Deebo Samuel when he was with the 49ers before those few years, especially when they were close to getting a couple Super Bowls. But yeah, I that's my biggest takeaway. It's got to be the best receiving core in the SEC, because I haven't seen a team have four guys play as elite as these four and show as much potential.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway was simply how Alabama was able to impose their will on both sides of the ball, really playing their style of football. You look at the totals at the end of the game. Alabama had 25 first downs compared to Georgia only getting 17. Then on third down, they were hot the entire night, going 13 of 19 versus Georgia only going 2 of 8. And then just being able to get the run game, not get it going, but get your best players out in space and get them able to get going early on. And like Matthew said, that receiving core continues just to show up each and every game. You got different options you can go to and stuff like that. So overall, my just biggest takeaway is just how Alabama was just able to play their brand of ball on the road, especially on the road is really important with this team having recent road struggles in the past. That's probably the best Kalen DeBoer has ever gotten this group to show up and perform on the road. And that's something that's going to be needed with Alabama moving forward, and having to still go in these hostile environments and stuff like that, and having to continue to stack wins so they can eventually get to be in line with their goals towards December when the season wraps up and stuff like that, and we're looking at playoff times and stuff like that. So
yeah, those are all great points, like you said, Travion, with the run game. Even though it wasn't crazy successful, with them not abandoning it, is I feel like that's a huge part. And there's another huge takeaway from this particular matchup. And we said this going into that game in terms of Alabama, Georgia. What you said, Matthew, it was clear that Alabama should have an advantage when it comes to their wide receivers going up against Georgia's defensive back, and they proved it early and often that, hey, it may not have been that close in terms of like the way that how the matchup played out. You could make an argument that it wasn't even that close. It probably wasn't really competitive. Alabama's wide receivers dominated Georgia's defensive backs, to be honest. And that's kind of like what's the narrative of this whole game. But my biggest takeaway was Ryan Grubb's creativity. And if you watch Alabama over the last few seasons, their last few coordinators, whether it's Bill O'Brien or Tommy Rees, and Nick Sheridan too, those offenses have been kind of bland, kind of really simple, nothing creative. I'm not saying they weren't effective. They just weren't as creative as Ryan Grubb was. last night. He was on that type of Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian type of creativity. I'm talking about like the plays that he had were like astonishing to watch because there was different layers of throws. You watch Ty Simpson go through throws and you looking like, yo, is this a play action pass or is this a backside screen? Is this a screen or is it something else? It was so many plays where I'm like, it seemed like the plays had different layers to it, like different reads to it. It was amazing, the things that we saw. One of the craziest plays, probably most people are going to say their craziest play was Caden Proctor, of course, catching the screen play. But there was a play earlier where he was at receiver where he motioned where a flag came. So we don't know what that play was. When he like motion, there's something else that's Caden Proctor going to be doing that we don't know yet. But it was probably the most impressive play to me was when Isaiah Horton and Jeremy Bernard was in the backfield, but they were lined up as receivers. Then I think it was like a third or fourth down, and Alabama converted it. Those guys went out to the flat, and it was like a backside screen on the other side of that. So the creativity that Ryan Grubb has could possibly be at a really elite level, and if he can effectively have this type of creativity as an offensive coordinator, it's just nature of the game. I'm not sure how long Alabama will be able to keep him. If he's this creative and he's this effective and he can use this offense to be as explosive as we think it could be, we could be looking at Ryan Grubb being a hot coaching candidate. And I've actually talked about this with Pat Dow, another one of our reporters who covered the game at Georgia. In terms of the landscape, it's kind of like goes a little bit off of what we're saying right now. But in terms of the landscape of coaching with so many different job openings, there are not a lot of hot shot candidates at the moment in terms of like, yo, there's this up and coming coach that should get the Arkansas job or should get these other jobs, whether it's the Oklahoma State job, these jobs that are open. There's not a lot of high end candidates out there. And if you look at Alabama's coordinators, they have an opportunity to grab some job opportunities because of Womack, who's a guy who has been a head coach before. So you'll think that transition will be easier. And Ryan Grubb has coached in the NFL and he is really showing ability to be really creative, but it's kind of a little bit different than what we're talking about. But like I said, my biggest takeaway was Ryan Grubb's creativity. It really stood out. And I think if he can stay creative and Ty Simpson can play at the level that he is playing at, Alabama's offense is going to be explosive and is only going to get more explosive because even though this isn't the Georgia defensive whole, this is still one of the more talented defenses in college football. And I'm not sure if you're going to play any better defenses, than Georgia. And that's just the nature, of the game, specifically a defensive mind like Kirby Smart. But of course, the game wasn't all sunshine because there are struggles. It's just a part of the game. You're going to have your ups and downs when it comes to any particular game. In my opinion, the thing that my biggest takeaway in terms of what Alabama needs to improve on is specifically on the defensive side of football in terms of explosive plays. I felt like they stood up against Georgia's offense pretty well. I feel like they kept Gunnar Stockton contained really well. Specifically, a couple of times, I think Edric Hill did this when Gunnar Stockton was trying to break free. Like he was able to get off his block and contain him. They did a great job of containing him without a spot at times. So I thought that from that perspective, I thought Alabama's defense from play to play, it looked good and stout and impressive at times, but then out of nowhere beat his big play. Like whether it's the Chunson Bowens guy he had, you didn't even realize until you look at the stat sheet, like this guy got all these yards. Like where did they come from? It just come from chunk plays because he didn't get the ball a crazy lot. I'm pretty sure Georgia fans are probably pulling their hair out saying, yo, why this guy didn't get the ball more? But he had so many explosive plays, and that kind of was the nature of the Georgia offense. They were boom and bust a lot. And I think if the Crimson Tide can eliminate big plays, because explosive plays are really heartbreaking when you're on defense because they really change a lot of different things. So from that perspective, if Alabama I feel if they can slow down the explosive plays, I feel like that's going to benefit them in the future, for sure. I'm going to throw it to you, Trevion, and talk about what do you think they need to continue to improve on to just continue to get better. Because like DeBoer said, he feels like they're not there yet.
Yeah, something that caught my eye that they have to continue to get better just overall as a football team is really just sustaining that energy. You come out hot versus Georgia on the road, like I said, imposing your will, throwing the ball, taking deep shots, getting able to get your best players in space. But in the second half, you see, just like last year, they didn't score a point. And I don't think that's coincidental. I think that's just something that Kalen DeBoer has to continue to work through with this football team, getting them to play all four quarters, especially in competitive games, because you're going to have games where you play teams that are gonna continue to score. They're gonna keep scoring. Like fortunately for Alabama, in Alabama's case last night, in last year when they played Georgia, Georgia started out slow and stuff like that. But you're gonna have a team when you go on the road. I don't know what team it's gonna be, but Alabama's gonna have a team that comes out and scores with them in the first quarter. They're gonna score in the second quarter. They're gonna score after halftime. And Alabama, last night they got the win. I'm not gonna harp on them, but that's a small area of concern for me. Finishing the ball game, finishing stuff like that. They were able to keep Georgia at arm's length, but you got some teams that's gonna have an explosive offense like them, like Alabama has, is gonna be able to go pound for pound, match for match, and they might even have a better running game. So that also might be something that Alabama might have to counter. So, like I said, just being able to, like I said, and like Kalen DeBoer said in the post game after the game, sustaining that energy. That's something that Alabama is gonna have to prove that they can do going forward. So that's something that caught my eye, and that's something that I'm gonna be looking to see if they can improve in that area moving forward.
Yeah, I want to just kind of say that I thought of a takeaway, or excuse me, I thought of a something I need to prove on while we were kind of just sitting here for a minute. I do want to go with the one I originally had, which was Connor Talty struggling. I want to knock that out first because we got him and some manageable field positioning and manageable kicks, and he's not making them. And that's something that you don't want to be all like, hey, we understand. We watched the Pat McAfee kicking contest. We know some people get up there to think it's easy. No, they send it all the way across campus the wrong way. I know it's a difficult thing to kick. However, that one that we saw against Georgia, his kick that he missed, it looked like when you play NCAA and that meter keeps going like this, and then you just get it stuck on this side, and it just went all the way. I mean, it's just like that wasn't even a close attempt. So I don't know if it's a confidence thing, but I will say that they need to keep him maybe about 38 to 40 and under. I wouldn't let him go above it. I'd go for it no matter what, unless you feel like you need to punt it near the logo or, get a delay a game on purpose to back yourself up. But yeah, I would. They've been successful on fourth down a lot. I mean, I love the creativity, like you said, especially on the fourth downs. I mean, they're successful. And then, of course, the one that I alluded to thinking of is more about Ryan Williams. I know I said he was a little bit inconsistent. He did come away with 5 catches, but he is making business decisions when it comes to blocking. He is making he's absolutely whiffing. I know there was a screenplay that Jeremy Bernard was able to make people miss on, but Ryan Williams absolutely whiffed on a block. And it happened the play before that when they had Ryan Williams kind of move, and then he was supposed to kind of have a head start and come down and block somebody and kick out, but he just kind of made a business decision. So that's got to stop, or else you're going to have to just be like, all right, well, if we're going to run the ball and we need a receiver blocking, we need to kind of get him away from the play and not factor him into the blocks. Other than that, I think Ryan kind of found his footing later in the game, but he's still looking like he's making some business decisions.
Yeah, I think I've actually talked to a couple of people about that. I think it's all a part of a lot of different things, and I think we all notice Ryan is a small guy. As much as he's put on weight, he's still a small receiver, and I go back to even that Florida State game. I think that if you guys go back and look at it, that first hit he took against Florida State, I think that kind of shook up the whole game. And that kind of, you could say that kind of flashed itself against Wisconsin when he dropped the ball and things was closing in on him. I started to think I started to have a conversation at the Georgia game. I wonder if Georgia's lights were blinding because Georgia's receiver did the exact same thing that Ryan did. I'm like, yo, is the lights bad? Because they did the exact same thing in the exact same situation and the exact almost opposite sides of the field, but at the same part of the field technically on different sides. So yeah, I can see that a little bit. And I think a lot of it has to do with he's a smaller guy, but he's always going to be small and it's just part of it. And he's a finesse type of receiver. He's more so known for his athleticism. He's never been known for his physical attributes in terms of being a physical wide receiver. So yeah, I can definitely see that. Another thing, speaking of special teams, I want to highlight before we close out here, the punter position. It's on the opposite side of the kicker. Blake Dowd, he did some things in that game. He flipped the field really good when Alabama was, I think it was, they got deep. They got pinned deep. Georgia pinned them deep. Ryan Grubb pushed the ball down the field a lot on that drive. I wasn't a fan of that play calling because I'm like, yo, you push the ball deep a lot of times and you're already back deep. I thought you should have ran it a little bit, but Dowd completely flipped the field. He was really impressive. He even down Georgia deep, I think, a couple times. So opposite side of Talty, I think the punting game is in a really good spot for Alabama. But expanding a little bit on my previous point about the explosive attacks, Alabama still is struggling laterally in terms of those plays. Whenever Georgia went like laterally or outside, Alabama was out of place. And there were times when, and it was I'm not sure how Womack sees it or what the problem is, but there were times where you saw it in the press box when Alabama's defense lined up against Georgia. You saw the outside open before the ball snapped. And that's exactly where the running back went. I'm like, yo, that was open because there's literally nobody. And there was times where Alabama's linebackers and defensive linemen are stacked on top of each other. They literally, as soon as like the Georgia running back would run up to the line of scrimmage, everybody will move to the middle and he stacked on top of each other. Then he bounced out. There's nobody outside. So I'm not sure if that's an alignment issue. I'm not sure exactly what goes into that, but that's another like thing that kind of stood out in terms of just the wide scope in terms of Alabama football.
I wanted to add something about the Ryan Williams blocking point is that, have you heard of a guy named Devontae Smith that he actually, I believe that Ryan Williams might be a little bit larger than Devontae. And in Devontae's first year in the NFL, he was graded the 4th best blocking wide receiver. And it's one of those things that is part of playing the position. You have to do it. Like it's part of it. And I don't think Devontae, I don't hear him necessarily making any excuses. So I don't think Ryan should. Ryan trained with him this offseason. I know that Devontae probably had to have said something at some point about blocking, but I mean, I definitely understand that, you know, you want to do whatever you can to keep people healthy. Like I wouldn't put him in a situation where he has to build up a head of steam and then go hit somebody. So I kind of agree on that point. But when you have a screenplay, it's literally a guy that if there's a guy pressed up on you, you're not having a car crash collision with him. If he's pressed up on you, you just got to block. Like it's not, you're not having a collision with him. You have to kind of just learn where to, put your hands, where do you need to turn them, follow his eyes. If he's trying to get, one way, you got to turn him the other way. I mean, it's kind of just like, I just thought of Devontae Smith in that moment just is something that you have to do. It's part of the position.
Yeah, I think everything you said was right. I think 100% you're spot on in terms of like, he got to do it. Like he has to learn how to do it. He has to get better at it. It's just something he has to do. But also on the flip side of it, just studying Ryan and for a long time, he's not that type of, he has to get better at it. He's just not that type of receiver though. He's not that type of guy. He's really athletic. He's really explosive. He's fast. And I don't want to say this because it may come off as wrong, but it's just the nature of it because Ryan is everything that we say he is. He's elite. He's special. But Smitty has a little bit more dog in him in terms of physicality and toughness. That's just a part of it. Not saying that Ryan isn't a dog in terms of how good he is, but just being that physical chip on his shoulder. Devontae had a bigger chip than Ryan has. And that's nothing. Ryan is more finesse. It's just part of his game. I never saw him. I almost want to say it's been games in high school. I didn't see Ryan get tackled because he outran everybody. He's so fast. He's crazy fast. I think we don't even probably talk about it enough. He's insanely fast. Like he's like 10-6, 10-4, 100 meter dash, crazy fast. So that's something that Smitty technically didn't have. Smitty is a great route runner. Like I said, he has that dog in him. When he's gonna get it, he's gonna make it happen. And that probably what has ultimately made him shine the most because he's gonna work for it and get better. I think Ryan has a little bit more natural skill than Devontae has in terms of speed. And yes, I feel like that's kind of like the difference. But yeah, you're right. Everything that you said is completely right. He has to get better at blocking. He has to do it. And it's just something he has to work on. He's not just gonna come naturally to him, or he's gonna be off the field. Like simple as that, like Jamarcus Shepard and Ryan Grubb has said. Are you gonna come in there and say anything, Trevion, before we conclude?
And yeah, just to add lastly on that point about Ryan Williams, and if it's a thing like a personnel thing, or something like that. I think Alabama, in those specific situations when they want to get the screen game going and stuff like that, they have another receiver that can block, and he has the physical mass to do so. And I'm talking about Rico Scott. So that might be another person they want to get involved in the screen game as a blocker. He can catch the ball as well. Not trying to take anything off of Ryan Williams' play or nothing like that, but you know, teams see that. Teams see him whipping on blockers. Teams with physical cornerbacks and physical safeties and stuff, they might test him moving forward. So not to make it all about Ryan, but that's just a small micronism of something that he needs to work on, or Alabama needs to shift to different personnel in those type of situations. That's just my small take on the situation there. But other than that,
Yeah, all good points. Like all good points, for sure. But yeah, that would do it for this episode of Bama Elite. Thank you guys so much for joining us today on our YouTube channel. Be sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Subscribe to the notification bell. Be notified when we drop content on our YouTube channel. As always, I'm joined by Matthew Mason, talented team reporter and contributor here at Touch Alabama. Trevor Unaware, as well, another one of our talented team contributors and reporters. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Bama Elite.